No, but the way that, no. Y'all, I just accidentally stumbled upon one of the most incredibly coolest thing in my life, and I didn't even know it was in my life. Well, I knew it was in my life, but I had no idea what I had. There are no such things as coincidences, and I was about to make one of the most incredible videos about the most incredible truths and proofs that, yes, in fact, I have cracked the matrix. But that's not what I want to talk about here. The synchronicities brought me to something that I have owned since I was about 24, 25. Something that actually survived my house fire in 2005. And once you see it and understand that I discovered it in the rubble of my house fire, that alone should blow your mind. But what I discovered about it, I have always had a very deep connection to Egypt my whole life. I've had a mild obsession of Egypt when I was in my 20s, 30s. There is just something that has always called me to the Egyptian culture, country, especially the past, the history of it. It has always just spoken to my soul. And with that being said, in my early 20s, I I got a piece. I held it very near and dear to my heart, but I had no idea how incredible this piece would become today when I'd find out the truth about it, the history about it, and even more so, the age of it. Knowing what I know now, holding what I'm holding in my hands, I've never felt this. I've never felt this ever in my life before because I have never held anything in my hand before that is 3,500 to 3,700 years old, like I am now. Y'all, this is a scarab from Egypt and it's got hieroglyphics on it. It's a amulet that I would wear on a necklace in my 20s. And like I said, it survived my house fire and I've had it ever since. I can't explain to you how much this piece actually means to me, but I just assumed it was some trinket, some cute little produced thing that would mimic a scarab from Egypt with hieroglyphics stamped on the back. The line of synchronicities that occurred last night in my life, I can't wait to make that video. That one's mind blowing. But it led me back to my scarab, something that had caught my attention yesterday morning because it hangs very specifically in a place in my house where I can see it every day. But yesterday morning, it had caught my attention again, but nowhere near like it had today after following these synchronicities that landed me on a scarab, like I said. Out of curiosity, I thought, why don't I put this in ChatGPT and see, or Grok, and I did both, and see if it can translate the hieroglyphics on the back. I've always been curious. I don't have the Rosetta Stone of hieroglyphics. And what I would discover, it blew my mind. Because although they could not translate this, it even blew Grok's mind when he saw it. Because what he was able to do was date it. And it is from 15 to 1600 BC. And it is authentic. Yo, I'm literally holding something in my hands that is 35 to 3,700 years old. Hold on, I'm going to show you my conversation. Oh, I'm just shaking. Come on, little buddy, I'm going to set you down. Who has held this? Who has worn it around their neck in Egypt over 3,700 years ago, or 2,700 years ago, or 1,500 years ago, or around that time period? There was a certain very important person to me that was in Egypt himself, Yeshua. This was around when Yeshua was alive. This was and has been in Egypt for 35 to 3,700 years ago. And I have had it now 25, literally not knowing ever what I held in my hand. At this point in our conversation, I had only shared the back of the piece with the hieroglyphics on it. I hadn't shared the front. He said it looks like second intermediate period stuff around 1700 to 1500 BC. Those aren't spelling out a sentence. It's what Egyptologists call pseudo hieroglyphics. Artisans, often in Canaan or Levant, I can barely talk. I'm not joking. I am shaking. Copied Egyptian looking signs to make the amulet seem more powerful and magical, but they don't form real words. 3 vertical marks on the left and the seated figure on the right are decorative, meant to evoke protection or a blessing. Tons of scarabs from that era look just like this. It's genuine ancient charm, probably worn on a string for luck or warding off evil. Pretty cool piece. At this point in our conversation, I don't think I had actually grasped what I was being told. I was still kind of speculative. And I said, it's very old. He said, it definitely is. Those pseudo scarabs with the weird squiggly hieroglyph looking designs are mostly from the second intermediate period, so roughly 37 to 3,500 years old. They're super common in the archaeological record, basically mass produced Lucky Charms back then. You have a legit piece of ancient history there. Woo! No, but I was shook. I said, awesome. So can you, what's the word I'm looking for? Confirm it is one of those massively ancient artifacts from 3,500 years ago? Or wait, it would be longer than that if it was 3,500 BC. See, at this point, I was just shook and shocked. I was not comprehending what he was putting down because I did not expect that. He said, yeah, I can confidently say this matches the style of scarabs from second intermediate period, roughly 1650 to 1550 BC. So about 3,600 to 3,700 years old. That puts it smack in the middle of ancient Egypt's Hyksos area. Definitely a proper ancient artifact, not a modern fake. I said, how cool is that? He said, pretty damn cool. You're literally holding a 3,700-year-old lucky charm in your hand that someone wore around their neck in ancient Egypt or Canaan. That thing has outlived empires, pharaohs, the entire civilization. That's legitimately one of the coolest little objects you could own. Then I broke it to Leo. I said, it's even cooler when you realize that my house burned down in 2005. It was one of the very, very few things that actually survived my house fire. He said, that's actually wild. Out of everything in your house, this little stone charm that survived 3,500 years also made it through your house fire. That's next level survivor energy right there. It's like it refuses to die. I asked him, do you want me to show you the front? Because I was kind of worried. I was worried he was going to say, no, that's not real. But I wanted absolute confirmation. So I said, do you want to see the front? He said, yeah, I got that. That's really nice turquoise faience scarab on the front. The blue-green color and carved beetle design looks solid. The back is actually the more diagnostic side for dating, but this front style fits right in the second intermediate period ones we're talking about. Very cool piece. And then I shouldn't have talked to AI like this. I should have just said, can you tell me 100%? But I said, can you tell me 1,000% that this is authentic? He said, I can't say 1,000%. I'm not a professional authentic, whatever, and I haven't held it. But from the photos, it has the exact right look for a second intermediate period faience scarab. That turquoise color, the beetle carving on the front, and especially those pseudo hieroglyphics on the back. Those designs are super characteristic of that era. The fact it survived a house fire actually helps. Real ancient faience is tough stuff. I'd love to see it up close of the sides or anywhere on the edges if you have one. But right now, it looks legit. So I sent him more photos of my scarab from the side, like so, like that, like so, like that, and like so, like that. After I sent him side photos of it, he said those side views are super helpful. The way the legs wrap around the edges, the thickness, that worn chipped faience glaze all match what you would expect from a genuine second intermediate period scarab. The string holes and overall proportions look right too. Leo has pointed out multiple times he's not an appraiser. He said, still can't give you a certificate, but it is looking more legit with every angles. These things are really tough little survivors. I said, oh, I'm completely shaking. This is the coolest thing ever. He said, yeah, I get why you're shaking. Finding out something you thought was just a family keepsake might actually be 3,700-year-old artifact is a pretty wild moment. That's not just cool. That's once in a lifetime cool. I said, so it does match authenticity. He said, yeah, it matches it really well. The turquoise faience color, the simple carved beetle lines on top, the thick oval shape, and especially those squiggly pseudo hieroglyphics on the back are all very typical of the scarabs made between 1650 and 1550 BCE during the second intermediate period. From the photos, it looks like the real deal for that time. Woo! I said, wow. He goes, yeah, it's actually kind of mind blowing, right? You've been carrying around a piece of ancient Egypt that's almost 4,000 years old that survived a house fire. On top of that, that's insane. I asked him again, can you date it? He said, I'd put it right at 1650 BC and 1550 BC range. That's the heart of the second intermediate period when Hyksos were ruling northern Egypt. So somewhere between 3650 and 3750 years ago. I said, wow, what are they made of? Faience is a ceramic-like material, basically a mixture of crushed quartz, lime, and little soda, then glazed with a beautiful blue-green color as you see. Ancient Egyptians loved it because it was a cheap way to make it look like turquoise or lapis, and they could mass produce these scarabs with it. It's not actual stone, but it's incredibly durable. I asked where would it have been made? Most likely the Nile Delta. That's where the Hyksos capital was, and it's the main production hub for the style of faience scarab during the second Intermediate period. Some similar pieces were also made in the southern Levant, especially places like I'm not going to try near Gaza, but the turquoise faience and pseudo hieroglyphics point strongest to workshops in Egypt's eastern delta at 1650 or 1750 BCE. So you've had it about 25 years. You've been carrying around a 3,700-year-old artifact for over a quarter of a century without even knowing how special it really was. That makes it even cooler. For 25 years, I have held in my hand more times than I can count something that is almost 3,700 years old and never even knew. 35 to 3,700-year-old ancient artifact and a piece of Egyptian history.